Talk about a crusher. Yes! Oh!
Are you kidding me?
And gone!
Welcome back to the Schoolyard Sports Podcast. I'm the host of this podcast, Lane Frank. We are now on episode 266. So 266 episodes through, and I got an action-packed episode planned for you. LeBron James is a Philadelphia 76er, so you know I'm going to dive into all things relating to the king, LeBron James, and his new squad. The MLB trade deadline is here. We can break down possibilities, where some things stand going on for the rest of the season. There's some hype building up for this new NFL season, so we're going to talk a little bit of football, college football as well. We've got some big news on the business side of it and the football side of it this week. So let's hop into episode 266. Now, let's start off episode 266, how we always do, with our headlines in the NBA. Of course, LeBron James is a Philadelphia 76er, and of course, I'm going to give you a segment on it later, but I want to just bring you the headline right there. Another headline I want to talk about in the NBA, Nikola Jokic not signing an extension this summer. I think Denver actually would have given him one, but he's going to wait and see how things go. Promises he'll sign one next summer, but things change in a year. Kyrie Irving, famous for saying that he'd re-sign with Boston, never did. Many examples of that. Nikola Jokic could be next on that list if he doesn't stay in Denver after this season. The Cavs, they kind of got left in the dust by this whole entire situation, but they are picking up Mario Hezonja. LeBron left them in the dust by not going back. Now they have to bring back James Harden because they kind of promised him, or maybe they reneged that promise. Mario Hezonja, though, is their pickup of the offseason. It seems like, a failure of an offseason for Cleveland as the 2 seed. The team that was very close to getting to the NBA Finals last season didn't do it. Doesn't get LeBron James, who would have been that difference maker for them next season. Miami Heat also kind of left in the dust here. I know a lot of people want to say that the Warriors, they had the worst offseason. The Miami Heat didn't have that crazy of an offseason. Yes, they get Giannis Antetokounmpo. They made the biggest move of the offseason outside of the LeBron James signing. But this just isn't that great of a roster now. You don't have a true point guard. You lost your shooting guard, Norman Powell. You lost your other shooting guard, Tyler Hero. I don't know where this Miami Heat team goes now. You kind of just have Giannis and Bam Adebayo. No LeBron James in there definitely complicates some things. And of course, the Golden State Warriors, no moves at all this offseason. Good drafting with Axel Lendeborg. But outside of that, this team is going to struggle next season, in my opinion. They're bringing back Draymond Green today on a 1-year, $27 million deal, but you kept Jimmy Butler, you didn't get a Kawhi Leonard in there, you didn't get anybody else. You're kind of just bored now, Golden State. Not happy with the way their offseason went, outside of drafting Summer League MVP, Axel Lendeborg. That's about for the news in the NBA. Let's move on to the NFL, or, first thing in the NFL, just want to talk about the Kyle Shanahan situation. Obviously, one of the best coaches in the game. Tough accident that happened to him, and we just hope Kyle Shanahan will be ready by the start of the football season, and of course, to get his health in order for that great 49ers squad. Jalen Carter, the Eagles defensive lineman, just signed the greatest extension or contract ever for a defensive tackle. Great deal for Jalen Carter, a guy who really was a huge steal in the draft. All season long, he was projected as a top 3 pick, has a situation before the combine, falls down to pick 10, goes to the Philadelphia Eagles, actually pick 9. The Eagles trade from 10 to 9. It was a great draft for the Eagles that year, and they got their guy in Jalen Carter, who I think is the best defensive tackle in the NFL. And this just complicates things more for, I'd say, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who are dealing with their own situation right now. Vita Vea, another great defense tackle, he doesn't have a contract, and now another guy, same position as him, gets a huge contract. Well, that's the standard now. Vita Vea, he definitely thinks he's better than Jalen Carter. He's going to want that deal. And somebody could give it to him. They're going to trade Vita Vea, and he's going to get a huge contract. And that's, I think, the least of the Buccaneers' issues. Baker Mayfield has not signed an extension, will not sign an extension, and is just going to play out this season and go to the offseason, see how things work. It is risky on both sides. I will break it down later, but the Buccaneers, I think, are in a world of trouble for next season. Now, in the MLB, we do have the trade deadline. Tarek Skubal, of course, is the prize on the market, but Mason Miller, no consolation prize, it seems like. He is the best closing pitcher, not just this year, not just the past 5 years, maybe I've ever seen talent-wise. Maybe not production-wise. Don't give me Mariano Rivera. That's not my time. Mason Miller is one of the best closers this game has seen, and he's on the market for another time, for the second straight year. So we'll see if the Padres end up dealing him or not. Mason Miller, the former Athletic on the market in the current San Diego Padre. Now, a current Athletic, Shea Langoliers, he was maybe on the market a little bit for a contract extension, didn't sign his extension, and tears his meniscus. Very public knowledge that, he didn't want to take his contract and end up tearing his meniscus just a couple games later. Tough break for the catcher for the Athletics. So he really has done a great job and kind of been an even piece in that deal from the Matt Olson trade back in 2022. The Athletics traded Matt Olson to the Atlanta Braves, and they got Shea Langoliers, the prospect, in return. So we hope for the Athletics and Langoliers that they get their contract situation figured out and that he heals up. And that's about for the news and the headlines this week. Now, take of the week. This week's take of the week is about the patch era in college football, and I hate it. So if you didn't see, Ohio State and Notre Dame both signed patch deals today, sponsor deals to have a company logo on their jersey. Ohio State is going with JP Morgan Chase to have that logo on their jersey for all their sports. And Notre Dame signed with SoFi, really a fintech company. And I hate it. They're getting a lot of money for it. Yes, they are. Almost nearly the same amount that whole entire conference like the Big 12 got for their Monster Energy deal, $20 million, $1 million to each school. For Ohio State and Notre Dame, they're basically getting $20 million each for these. But when you think of tradition, I think a lot of people think of Notre Dame, not just in sports, but necessarily in life. When you think of what's the most recognizable helmet in football, I'm not going to say it's Michigan. I think it's the Notre Dame helmet is the most recognizable helmet in football, and Ohio State actually might be a close second there. There's also a very recognizable jersey for both them. Ohio State's situation is one thing. For Notre Dame, a program that kind of prides itself on tradition, going against the grain, a team that wouldn't even wear the 150 patch in the 2019 season, the only college football team to not wear the 150 patch in the 2019-2020 season, is one of the first teams to sign a branding deal to have a patch on their jersey. I hate it. It's against tradition. I don't like it at all to have a patch deal on your jersey, no matter how much money you're getting. And some people might say, oh, Lane, it's just for the players. It's for their NIL. No, not necessarily. These schools can distribute it however they want. It's not technically NIL money. It's athletic department money, which they can maybe use towards that $20 million athletic funded NIL budget that you're allowed to have. The rest can come through donors, but the rev share at least and go towards that. I'm just not a fan of having that on your jersey. Now you already have your school's logo on the jersey. You have your swoosh, your Nike logo, your Adidas, your Under Armour. You have your conference logo. What if you're in a bowl game? You have that too. What if you're the captain? You have that too. Some schools put seed captains on there. So let's look at Ohio State. They're going to have the Ohio State logo on there. They're going to have the swoosh on there. They're going to have the captain patch on there. They're going to have the Big Ten logo on there. They could have the Rose Bowl logo on there, the playoff logo on there. That's 5 things. I think that's more than any sport. And yes, college football isn't the only sport doing this, obviously. We see it in so many leagues now. We see it in the MLS, in the NBA, in the MLB. NBA adopted it when they went to Nike in 2017. MLB did it 3 years ago. NHL did it 4 years ago. MLS has done it for a while. Soccer always does it. But like the NFL, the league that everybody says is so money hungry, they don't do it. They keep Roger Goodell, the league, they want to show off their own team, their league. They want to have the NFL logo and the team logo, and that's it. And that's all it should be. Yes, you can have a Nike or Adidas logo on there. Yes, you can have your own logo on there and a Big Ten patch. But for this, to add another logo, a sponsorship, I know it's just one thing. You say, Lane, relax, it's one thing. But no. If you ever look at a soccer jersey, a Premier League soccer jersey, the teams don't really have their logo really on there. It's more of a sponsorship across the middle. Is that where we're going in college football? I'll leave you with this. College football is more corporate than NFL. The amateur league has suddenly become more professional and more corporate than the actual professionals. That's the way it is. College football and college sports. I am not a fan of patch deals, not just because of the way it looks, but because of the message it sends. Don't go corporate college football, or maybe you already have. That's my take of the week. Now, top 5. This week's top 5 is the top 5 rivalries that have been left in the dust by new changes in college sports. Whether realignment, transfer portal, or NIL, these rivalries just don't have the juice anymore, or they don't play at all. Number 5, the Apple Cup. Now, these teams do play still, but Washington has kind of lost some of their swag since going to the Big Ten, and Washington State has fallen off the face of the earth out in Pullman since the Pac-12 has changed, disbanded, and changed again. That's number 5 on my list. The Apple Cup between Washington and Washington State every year in football. And I don't even know if they play basketball anymore. Number 4, this is an old one, but also a good one. Duke, Maryland in basketball. A huge rivalry back in the day when Maryland would win championships, when Duke would win championships, when J.J. Redick was on that Duke squad and all the Maryland fans hated him. But when Maryland left the ACC to go to the Big Ten, this rivalry hasn't seen a hardwood or a playing field in a very long time. Number 3, what about the Civil War? Oregon versus Oregon State. Very similar situation to Washington versus Washington State, but Oregon is just on a completely different level now. I mean, Oregon State is one of the worst programs, maybe financially and a couple other things throughout the past couple of years because of this change in college football. I don't think they're going to be contenders to win the Pac-12 this year. I like their new head coach, Jamarcus Shepard, but I just don't see a great future for them this season, at least. But I liked watching Oregon versus Oregon State. And Oregon State used to put up a good fight there. I mean, they beat Bo Nix when Bo Nix was at Oregon. They beat them in 2020, I believe. This is a good rivalry, the Civil War with an awesome name that's kind of been left in the dust the past couple of years. It still occurs, but it's not the last game of the year anymore. It doesn't have the juice. Oregon-Washington kind of has taken on that mantle of being the last game of the year in its own rivalry. But the Civil War between these two teams in-state just doesn't have the same energy when it's not on that Friday night before the last week of college football. Number 2, let's go with Nebraska, Oklahoma. Now, these teams did play in 2021 and 2022, but since then, it's been canceled. And actually, in those 2 games, there was a plan for Nebraska to cancel the matchups, and then Oklahoma fired back and basically said, that is not happening. You cannot do that. And they didn't, but Oklahoma, of course, won both those matchups. 2021 being a good one, 2022 kind of being an Oklahoma domination. But what used to be a great rivalry when Nebraska was in the Big 12, no more with Nebraska has since joined the Big 10. And number 1, rivalry that just doesn't have the juice anymore and doesn't even exist, Bedlam, Oklahoma, Oklahoma State. I love rivalries where you just say one word, 2 words, and you know it is. Iron Bowl, the game, Civil War, Apple Cup, and Bedlam. The highest scoring rivalry there ever was. Oklahoma versus Oklahoma State doesn't even happen anymore, and it's sad to see. Oklahoma State still in the Big 12, Oklahoma in the SEC. That's about for Top 5 this week. Leave your thoughts in the comments. Now, did you know, this week's Did You Know is, did you know the University of Michigan taught the University of Notre Dame how to play football? You think Notre Dame, you think of football, you think of tradition. Well, Michigan are actually the ones that taught it to them. There were 2 Michigan football players that were former students at Notre Dame that were back and touring campus and taught some Notre Dame people how to play football. They held a scrimmage that day, and they did the actual game that day, which Notre Dame lost 8-0 in 1887, their first college football game. This rivalry is a great rivalry. Another one that's kind of been left in the dust the past couple of years. Hopefully we'll see a return to it soon, I believe, in 2033 and 2034. But did you know that Michigan taught Notre Dame how to play football? Leave your answer in the comments. That's about for Did You Know this week. Now, it's time to do a spotlight this week on the king, LeBron James, where he is going to the Philadelphia 76ers, shocking me and shocking you and shocking the rest of the world with that decision. We thought it was kind of just between Miami, Golden State, and, Cleveland as that last fallback option. LeBron James, though, is a Philadelphia 76er. And yes, he has a great opportunity to win a championship right now. And it's not so much about him, but the way about this Sixers team is going to roll next season, it's a weird fit, it seems like. Not for LeBron, but maybe some of these other guys like Jaylen Brown on that team. Would the Sixers still make that Jaylen Brown trade if they knew LeBron James was coming? I don't know if that answer is yes. I really don't. I think you kind of keep that bench together a little bit more, keep some of your picks. You keep on a Paul George or you trade him for a good bench piece because this bench is slim when you look at it. You have Anthony Simons, who's going to be a great backup to Tyrese Maxey or VJ Edgecombe. You have LeBaron Philon, who I'm very high on, that I think could be a great NBA player, kind of drafted same area as Tyrese Maxey. Not saying he's going to be Tyrese Maxey, but he's in that level. Dean Wade can be shaky at times, but that is a good piece to back up LeBron. Where's your backup center? Adem Bona, Ariel Laporte? It's just not there. LeBron is not playing 82 games. Joel Embiid is definitely not playing 82 games. VJ Edgecombe and Jaylen Brown might, and Tyrese Maxey could as well. But what's the options here? Because Tyrese Maxey isn't necessarily a pass-first guy. So is LeBron your point guard? What's Jaylen Brown going to be? Because we've always heard that Jaylen Brown is this great defender. So is he really going to embody that now They play power forward. Joel Embiid is obviously the center. So I'm very excited to watch the Philadelphia 76ers play out next season. I'm very excited to watch LeBron James in that lineup. But it's just shocking to see this went. Jaylen Brown was not a fan of Bronny James. Kind of got caught on a hot mic 2 summer leagues ago talking about Bronny James. LeBron said, "I'll see him when I see him." Kind of mean that he's a little bit mad at Jaylen Brown for saying that on the hot mic. So now he's his teammate. For Jaylen Brown, we always heard his whole time in Boston that it wasn't anything with Jason Tatum. They were the best of friends always, or not the best of friends, but they were always cordial, and it was strictly basketball. Why Jaylen Brown wanted out, he kind of wanted to do his own thing. Well, this is the furthest thing from your own thing. This is LeBron James' farewell tour. This is Joel Embiid's team. This is Tyrese Maxey's squad. Is it VJ Edgecombe's future? You're like the 4th option. At times, it's going to seem like Jaylen Brown. For LeBron James, same thing. What option are you? Because Joel Embiid has to be the one, doesn't he? He's the MVP. Wait, LeBron, you're an MVP too? Oh, Jaylen Brown, you're an NBA champion? Oh, Tyrese Maxey, you're the best point guard in the NBA? Oh, VJ Edgecombe, we draft you number 3? Where are these guys going to fit in their roles? That's what I'm trying to point out to you right here, because all of those guys could have been a number 1 option with the way their roles and with the way their backgrounds were. That's my spotlight on LeBron James and the Philadelphia 76ers. He has his work cut out for him, and so does Nick Nurse. This is no vacation. This is no cruising to a championship. But LeBron, you got to win the championship, because this is going to be a rough patch of your career when we look back on it if you don't win the championship. Before Tom Brady came around, Joe Montana, I think, was the GOAT of football. Joe Montana left the San Francisco 49ers and went to the Kansas City Chiefs. He didn't win a Super Bowl, but he made it close, and he made it to the conference championship game. If you make it to the Eastern Conference Finals and lose in one of these last 2 years of your career, nobody is going to remember you for it, and it's going to be looked down upon in your career. So don't be Joe Montana, LeBron. Win a championship with Philadelphia, or else you're no better than Michael Jordan and the Washington Wizards. That's about my spotlight on LeBron James this week. Now it's time I talk about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers quarterback Baker Mayfield and his odd situation where he doesn't have a contract after this season, but he's their franchise guy. Now, we've seen this before in the NFL, but it is strange when a top quarterback hits the market. Now, last time this probably happened was Kirk Cousins, and he's done that a couple times in his career. Signed a big deal with the Falcons, signed a big deal with the Vikings. You know, he's done well for himself in his career through a free agency. Maybe Baker Mayfield is going to take a play out of his playbook. The 2018 number 1 overall pick has already been on 4 NFL teams. The Browns, the Panthers for a day, the Rams for half a day, and now the Buccaneers for the past couple seasons. The Buccaneers, though, are in a strange spot. They're not a bad team, but they're certainly not going to win a Super Bowl this season, in my opinion. And I don't know if Baker Mayfield is going to win a Super Bowl by himself. He can win one with a good team around him. We saw a guy like Sam Darnold do that this year. So if Baker Mayfield can get the right team around him, then maybe on a nice and shiny day, he wins a Super Bowl. But I don't think that's this season. I think the Buccaneers are in a situation now where they just let this situation ride. And yeah, if they have a great season, great, you'll extend them. If not, let's go full rebuild mode, because they have a great organization there, in my opinion. I like their GM, Jason Licht. I do like Todd Bowles, even though, you know, there's been situations there where maybe he could have been fired at times. But they never really got that full rebuild. They haven't been in a rebuild in a very long time. Their rebuild, I will say, ended in 2015 when Jameis Winston got drafted to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And then they got stuck with mediocrity with Jameis Winston for a long time. And this guy, Tom Brady, comes around to Tampa Bay, wins a Super Bowl with them, and then Tom Brady ends up leaving. They don't really get a full offseason to think about who their quarterback is going to be, because there was a situation going on where he was retired, then obviously unretired. The next year, after he was fully retired, they brought Baker Mayfield in, and Baker was so great. I mean, he won a playoff game for them against the Philadelphia Eagles, almost won another against the Detroit Lions. Baker has done a great job at Tampa Bay, but like I said, that full rebuild hasn't happened. Might be time to start thinking about one. You lost a guy like Devin White a couple years ago, just kind of lost his swagger. You lost Levante David, who just can't play anymore, too old, but had a great career. He was your maybe best player in franchise history. Vita Vea, he's on the trade block now. Mike Evans, your best player in franchise history. He's gone now. So it's time to think. Do we move on from Baker Mayfield, and do we move on from Todd Bowles after this season? I think you do. I think the Buccaneers have made some mistakes. I will say the biggest mistake they made is letting one of the best coaches in the NFL get out of their building. I think the Buffalo Bills saw what the Buccaneers did when they got rid, or when they didn't fire Todd Bowles to promote Liam Cohen to head coach, and Liam Cohen went on to have a great season with the Jacksonville Jaguars, developing Trevor Lawrence, getting them to a 13-win, whatever it was, season, and getting them close to winning a playoff game against one of the best teams in the league, Buffalo Bills. So Buffalo, they fired Sean McDermott, and they promoted their offensive coordinator, his assistant, to be the head coach. Tampa Bay could have done that the year before. Liam Cohen would be their head coach, and I don't think we'd be having this conversation right now. But here we are, and I think it's time for maybe a rebuild for Tampa Bay and for a new team for Baker Mayfield. But for Baker, it's a slippery slope that he didn't sign an extension this offseason. You have a bad year, you're on a new team that is 5 teams in your NFL career before you turn 32 years old. Something to think about there in the lane I would take for Baker Mayfield and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. If I'm Tampa Bay, I'd cut him loose after this season. If I'm Baker Mayfield, I would have signed that contract. None of those things are happening yet. That's about for what lane would I take. Still more to come. Episode 266. Now, let's go around the bases in the MLB on this trade deadline. The Cubs, I think, are going to be the surprise of the deadline, and they are going to go big. They had a great start to the season, then fell off a little bit, and now they're trailing second place in their division to the Milwaukee Brewers, but they think they're the best team in the NL, and they want that pennant. So I think they go big. A lot of people are saying Scooball is going to go to the Milwaukee Brewers. I think Scooball could go to the Chicago Cubs. This rotation is kind of weak in Chicago. He would certainly be that ace, and it would certainly be appealing for him to stay in Chicago after this season. Now, another team in Chicago on the south side, I think they go big too. A team that has struggled for a very long time, the Chicago White Sox, suddenly are having a great season, led by Munetaka Murakami, a great pitching staff, a good manager in Will Venable, and they have a chance to go big at this year's deadline and be buyers instead of sellers like in the past. So they could get in on the Tarek Skubal race. They could get in on the Byron Buxton race. I don't see that happening because same division, but still, that's another guy to watch on the market. Francisco Lindor, I hope it doesn't happen, and I don't think it will happen, a trade. I think Francisco Lindor has been on fire since he came back from injury, and I don't know if the Mets would get certainly a good enough deal. It would be too rushed. But again, it is the Mets. They could make a mistake like that. I'm excited to see the way this deadline plays out. Mason Miller, certainly another great candidate out there. We talked about him in the headlines, but I don't know who's going to pay that much for a closing pitcher. Yes, he's a great closer, but you still need to give him an extension. We've seen the way that goes for pitchers sometimes. The Dodgers gave Edwin Diaz a big contract this year, and he certainly has not lived up to it with injuries and some other bad play going on from him. So we'll see how this trade deadline plays out in the MLB. A lot of guys on the block, like I said, Mason Miller, Francisco Lindor, Byron Buxton, and the crown jewel, Tarek Skubal. That's about for around the bases in the MLB. Now, the best for last question of the day. This week's question day is, which NBA team had the best offseason? It's definitely not Golden State. New York Knicks, they didn't make the moves, but of course, they won the championship. Los Angeles Lakers, they made some moves. Philadelphia made their moves. But we're about wrapped up with the offseason. So who do you think had the best summer in the NBA? Leave your answer in the comments. That's about for question day this week. That's about for Schoolyard Sports and Lane Frank, episode 266. Thank you for tuning in. Follow Schoolyard Sports on Instagram at Schoolyard Sports. Follow Schoolyard Sports on X at Schoolyard Sport. Don't forget, subscribe, rate, and review for the best sports content in the world. Be back here next week, episode 267. Stay tuned.